What's up, everybody? This week I'm joined by Greg as we sit down and talk about an album that launched the careers of one of the greatest bands of all time, the 1995 debut album, Foo Fighters. That and a whole lot more is to come on this week's episode of the 90s podcast. Welcome to the show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 90s podcast right here in the Because Maybe Network. Hope you're doing well today, and this week I'm joined by Greg. Greg, how are you, man?
Hey, buddy, what's up? Doing well.
It's good to have you back on. Thank you very much for showing up on last week's episode. That was a real important one, I think, to give us a little bit of a palate cleanser in between. Basically, Doug is the meat between the Courtney and Dave sandwich that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. So
yeah, a little wholesome palate cleanser. Yeah, very, very, very good one.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked. If you didn't hear that one, that's one I enjoyed doing very much, and actually learned a lot too. I always knew that it was a very moral-based show, but I didn't realize that it was seeded the way that it was. So definitely check that out if you haven't. Yeah,
definitely check it out because it. Like I said, it did have a palate cleanser because we spoke about Courtney Love and Hall before that, and I figured, you know what, we need to let Dave Grohl tell his side of the story a little bit in what went down, and I figured that we would go ahead and do the Foo Fighters debut album, Foo Fighters.
Yeah, it's a pivotal album. It just kind of signaled that Dave wasn't going anywhere.
No.
There's a lot of uncertainty with the future of the band as a whole, and not just the members. After Cobain died, most people assumed it was the end, and it was, but it was hazy there for a couple of years as far as what was going to come of it. So absolutely delighted when it came out, and I figured it all out. It was great.
You had three people who depended on Nirvana for a job, for lack of a better term, aside from Kurt Cobain. You had Chris Novoselic, longtime bass player, for those who don't know, Dave Grohl, longtime drummer, and Pat Smear just joined the band to be their touring guitarist. And they were all basically unemployed, and they needed direction in their lives. And for at least two of them, the Foo Fighters was the ticket out of here. But there's controversy with that, and we'll talk about that at the end. I don't want to get into the mud at the beginning. We'll get into the mud at the end. Because,
we'll play it out first.
Yeah, we'll go through the good stuff first, then we'll talk about the bad stuff. Because for those who have been living under a rock, Dave Grohl has been in the news recently, and at least as of recording, and he's in a little bit of hot water, and a lot of people have said a lot of things about him, and we even cracked jokes about it last week, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, let's look at the art first, and then we can talk about the artist.
Sure.
So, but before we go ahead and get started, go check out becausemaybepodcast.com. That's where we find all of our archive, every show that we've ever done ever. Go check out Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the latest news and what's going on. I still refuse to say X, and I'll get onto that later on as well. And don't forget to check out Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podchaser, Pandora, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, or Amazon Music. That's where you find this podcast if this is not why you usually listen to podcasts, okay? So...
And he did that all with his eyes closed.
Yes.
That man had that down. Like, he was in his zone. So, yeah, it was very impressive.
The amount of times I've said that over the years. And what's worse is when one of them drops or I add one to it, and then I've got to remember what's going on. So, But we are here to talk about, for lack of a better term, Dave Grohl's second solo album.
Yeah, because his first one was more of a demo, so I didn't really get out there properly. But yeah, absolutely, he had irons in the fire for a while during Nirvana. So yeah, it was good to see it kind of come to fruition.
Because Dave Grohl is a talented musician, right? Let's take away from his drumming for a second, which is phenomenal. He's a fantastic drummer. Apparently, he's got perfect tom, which for a drummer that's a godsend. You need perfect
Coveted.
tom. Yes, but he's an accomplished pianist. He can play bass guitar, and he can play as frontman. He's played guitar for the Foo Fighters for all these years. But the reason I say that this is Dave Grohl's first solo project, right, is because this album was written and recorded and produced by Dave Grohl. Only one other person played on this album for one track, and So everything else is Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl drums, he basses, he guitars, he sings, he produces with a producer called Barrett Jones, who he did earlier work with. And yeah, this is just a real phenomenal show of what one man can do if he puts his mind to it.
Yeah, it's well, I remember when it first came out, it was slightly after Cobain had died, maybe like a year. I can't remember that's, but yeah, I remember like just being just totally in awe. Like, is this real life? Like the drummer from Nirvana is doing his own thing now, and he's all by himself. It was pretty incredible to hear like just what he could do, just by multi-tracking. And on a side note, I've tried to do this before, and it's not easy.
No, no,
It's not easy at all to capture the energy, to keep all your spots, because like typically well, I think I've touched on this before, but like when you cut a live album, you catch everything, the whole band live, and then you go and you put everything, you re-record guitars in
yeah.
a better environment, you redo the vocals in a better environment, blah blah, and you just kind of pull everything out and replace it. So basically, Dave had to go in and do the drums, like all the drums, and get them perfect, get the perfect changes and timing with the correct energy, and then go back and then add everything in and match that timing and that energy. So yeah, it's no small feat.
He laid a rough track down every hour. He recorded 4 songs a day for the 5 days that he was in the studio, and he recorded a rough track every hour. So I don't mean like just the drums. I mean, he'd go in there, he'd do the drums. Then he'd run into the next room, pick up a bass guitar, play the bass. Then he'd run into the next room, lay down 2 guitar tracks,
Yeah.
then sing it, and that process took an hour. And then after they finished the album, him and his producer, then they added, what little overdubbing that they put on this album.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to here in a minute. For those of you who want to know this kind of information, and I'm one of these people who loves to know this kind of information, this was released on July 4th, 1995, so just over a year after the death of Kurt Cobain. It reached number 23 on the Billboard charts and number 3 in the UK charts, which was astounding at the time because of the quality of albums that were coming out around about that time. For a debut band, for a rhythm player of an American band in the UK at that time, because this was during the height of Britpop. This was, Pulp, Oasis, Blur, Ocean Colour Scene, Suede, Elastica, Paul Weller, all these big names were coming out there. So to hit a top 5 album in the UK around the time of what was becoming a national phenomenon is really, really good.
Yeah. I was gonna say, listen to some of the competitors around that time. Radiohead released The Bends.
Yeah.
What's the Story? Morning Glory came out.
Yep.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness double album. Aphex Twin, Deftones' debut album Adrenaline, which also charted. Tupac's last album, Me Against the World. Let's see, Green Day, Insomniac.
Yep.
Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill.
Yep.
I mean, Alice in Chains self-titled album. I mean, I could keep going. There's it was a big year for music.
Yeah,
Foo Fighters is mentioned on there as well. So yeah, that was a huge year. So to stand out like that, that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, not only does it stand out, it's a real good album, and that's what a lot of people take away from the novelty of the album and the circumstances of the album kind of overshadow the music on the album, so to speak. But the music's dang good. It really is.
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, I don't know, from what I can gather and the context clues, like it's just kind of Dave just kind of going through a journey.
Yes.
After his world got totally turned upside down, and he has mentioned before that the gun on the cover was not symbolic to that. But
No.
I'm not so sure that's true. Maybe it was subconscious. Maybe he thinks that, but perhaps it was still subconscious.
Yes. Well,
I haven't.
Sorry, go ahead. But I'm lagging over here again, so apologies.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, that happens. I'm not sure where this fits in. I guess we can get to it here in a second. But I heard something really interesting from him the other day of why he decided to pursue this whole band and this album.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty interesting little story.
Well, we're going into the background of it, so we'll get to that here like very shortly. But I mean, 1990, Dave Grohl joined Nirvana as a drummer, taking over from Dan Peters, who himself took over from Chad Channing. So there's like a drummer merry-go-round in Nirvana at that time.
Yeah, it was. They saw Dave play with the band called Scream and immediately fell in love with him.
Nice.
They then knew Chad was not the right guy. They fired him. Dan Peters took over for a little while and helped them do the Insecticide album, I believe it was. He did some recordings with them.
Yeah.
Then they asked Dave to join the band. He joined, and I've mentioned this before, but Dave actually started off as a guitar player.
Yes.
A lot of people didn't know that. So, but he was Scream's original guitar player. They fired their drummer. He moved over to drums, and then they got Franz, who ended up Franz, one of the guitar players, the original guitar players, was in that band, so that was the connection there.
Nice.
So yeah, it was just like destiny when they happened to be playing that festival and saw Dave playing drums, and we're like, wow.
We got to get this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, not just he's a drummer who can play bass, piano, guitar, but he also has got a very good voice. He has a dang good voice, especially when it comes to the ballady kind of stuff as well as the screaming stuff that Foo Fighters can do. And so he immediately became backing vocalist to Kurt Cobain. And to me that was a novelty, seeing a drummer who could sing at the same time, because drumming and singing is hard. Yeah. I think only two people I know of have pulled it off really, really well, and that's Phil Collins and Don Henley.
Don Henley.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say this name.
The only two that can go with it. But I mean, if they produce better music, they'd probably be higher in my esteem.
Yeah, his voice was complimentary to Cobain's as well, because it was a slightly higher register.
Yeah.
So Cobain's voice was kind of grungy and kind of gruff at times, and then his was more pure, and it kind of just soared over the top. Listen to In Bloom, and you'll know what I'm talking about. On that one, he actually had trouble hitting those high notes. So according to Butch Vig, he would go outside and smoke like half a cigarette real quick, and then come back in and say, F it, let's do it again. And he said he did it like 10 times, and on the 10th time, he got it. Perfect. Nice. So,
well, there was a story I heard. One of my favorite singers is a guy called Fran Healy from Travis. And real good voice, Scottish guy. And he started losing his ability to do the big, sweeping choruses that they used to do back in the day, right? So what they did, they recorded one of their albums. They were recording it in Norway, and it was literally the most northern studio in mainland Europe. So to get this song, they tried it about 4 times, and in the end, he stripped naked, ran out of the record studio into the North Sea, which was like literally right at the beach. Went in the water for about 20 seconds, run back into the studio, shivering, freezing, naked, going, play the track, and got it. So
whatever it takes, man.
Whatever it takes, whatever people do for their art, man, it's fantastic. But in '92, under the pseudonym Late, he recorded an album of demos known as Pocket Watch. Grohl played all the instruments and produced it with a gentleman by the name of Barrett Jones.
He actually presented that to Kurt, and Kurt hugged him and told him it was awesome.
Yes.
And that actually gave him some confidence, which was really good for him.
Well, not only that, legend goes that Cobain was like, yes, I don't have to write every single song in the band anymore. Fantastic. And Dave Grohl was like, no, you do, because you were the superior songwriter. Which,
right.
I love Kurt Cobain. It's subjective. It really is subjective. And I think that a couple of Nirvana tracks written by Dave Grohl wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world.
If you're looking for a track by Nirvana that Dave Grohl wrote and performs lead on, it's a B-side track. It's called Marigold.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone listening has heard that, but it's very chill, very low key. It sounds more like the Foo Fighters, especially a track on this particular album, than it does Nirvana. But I always thought it was really cool to hear Dave sing. And then the first time I heard it when I was like 12 or 13, I was like, wow, Dave really can sing. Like, I knew he did backup, but singing backup and singing lead are kind of two different approaches. Yeah. So, it was really, really good.
But, we all know what happens next. In 1994, unfortunately, Kurt Cobain committed suicide. And, allegedly.
Depending on what foot you have in whatever camp. But, yeah, there's...
Yeah,
it was ruled a suicide, so we'll call it that.
We're gonna go with suicide for the sake of argument, because a lot of people say argument in time, because some people say the wife did it, some people say the drummer did it, and I stay away from all those arguments. As far as I'm concerned, it was a tragedy. Well, it is a tragedy, regardless of what the result was, but yeah, I still think that it was an unfortunate suicide, sadly.
Absolutely.
But so Dave Grohl entered a state of depression after this, and he was at a crossroads in his career. He was invited to play for other acts. Pearl Jam wanted him, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers wanted him, and he turned them down.
So
Um,
Pro Jam ended up going with Matt Cameron, who was Soundgarden's drummer, because the Soundgarden had just broke up
yeah.
a couple years later. They had hired guns for a while, but the just real quick, when the part about when he was in that state of depression, this is when he decided to push on. Actually, he went to, I believe it was Ireland or Scotland. he
Yes.
he wanted to go somewhere really remote, kind of away, and just so he could just kind of clear his head, spend a week or so just figuring out what his next move was going to be, because he had these offers, and he had stuff, studio work offers, but he just was very disillusioned by the entire situation.
Oh, definitely.
So he rents his cabin like out in the middle of nowhere, and he's in a rent a car driving around, and he's in the middle of nowhere, like you can't see any kind of civilization anywhere, and he's still grappling with the whole thing. And suddenly he comes around a corner and he sees a kid hitchhiking wearing a Nirvana t-shirt,
Yes.
and he realized, wow, like even even to this far into the middle of nowhere, like
I can't
this thing
avoid
has
it.
magnitude. I can't ignore this anymore. Like this is my chance to do something with this. I've got an opportunity. So it kind of inspired him. I just thought that was a really, really, really cool story.
Yeah, I mean, it was in County Mayo, I think, County Mayo, Ireland,
Oh, yeah, okay.
because County Mayo has a long history of um. First, that's where my family's from. That's where my stepdad's family from.
Oh, cool.
That's where the Gallagher brothers' family is from, mother's side of the family,
Oh, okay.
and apparently Joe Biden has got a lot of links to County Mayo as well.
Interesting.
So it's a very, very important part of Ireland, even though it's a remote west, which is a pain to get to. But no, I mean, you're right. He did decide after meeting that guy in County Mayo and saying, hey, I'm going to go do this again. But originally he said in an interview, which I don't have the source for, unfortunately, I couldn't get the right source, but it is a legitimate quote, that I was supposed to just join another band to be the drummer for the rest of my life. I thought that I would rather do what no one expected me to do. And then he said in classic rock album in 1995, he said, I just couldn't imagine playing in other bands because it would remind me of being in Nirvana. Every time I sat down behind a drum set, I would think of that. So what tempted him back into this was he was behind the kit of the movie awards, the MTV Movie Awards, and played on Mike Watt's album Ball Hog or Tugboat. What a weird name for an album.
Yeah.
And Grohl was so happy with these that he decided to work on his own project, which he described as some sort of cathartic therapy. And you can understand where that comes from, I mean,
Yeah, it wasn't just Cobain's death, but it was also there was some legal issues with the Cobain estate and Courtney Love. So I'll Stick Around on this album
yes,
is rumored to be about her, and I'm sure we'll get to that in detail. But yeah, it was him just airing his grievances and punching some pillows, kind of in music form, I
yeah.
would say. So yeah, cathartic therapy is a good explanation for that.
He needed to show that he could do it by himself, I guess, was part of it. Before he went back, I guess in his mindset it was, this is who I am as a musician. It was, for lack of a better term, his audition tape. To other bands and artists, yeah.
Yeah, to like his own merit, not like I don't have to have Kurt Cobain to do something cool.
Yeah. So he hooked up with Barrett Jones and booked Robert Lang Studios to record 15 tracks in just 6 days. And
That's so fast.
aside from one guitar solo, Grohl played all the instruments and did all the vocals himself, as he'd done with the Pocket Watch demo. Each song took around 45 minutes to an hour to record, and around 4 songs were recorded every day during this process. That is
crazy.
fast.
Yes, that's the guy that showed up and knew exactly what he wanted and was ready, knew all his stops and starts, endings, etc.
I mean, we did a demo in my attic. There was 3 of us, right? There was a guitar, 2 guitars, a piano, and a microphone. And it took us longer than 45 minutes to do one track.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
he had a full kit, did it all himself, and he had it done in an hour. I mean, that's phenomenal work.
Yeah, I mean, even for like a fully hooked up studio with separate rooms, I mean, there's still a lot of engineering that goes into like getting all the mic placement right, getting the levels, the gains. So just the teching part, and to be able to go in and accomplish that, yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Upon completion of the songs and the mix, he handed a copy of the tape to his friends and management to get feedback only. And everybody loved it. Everybody thought it was fantastic. And it started to gain major label interest because management was like, hey, this is the drummer from Nirvana. This is his solo album. You need to listen to this because it's fantastic. And word got around. So he decided to name the album Foo Fighters, as well as call the band that recorded that too. Because he didn't want to see it as a solo project, so to speak. So it was just, again, it was Black Widow an audition tape, you know? And he signed with Capitol, and one of the conditions was he gets a band together. Now, he did. That's easy to do, you know. I mean, when you have contacts like that, like he had, you know, and stuff like that, it was a lot easier than most. He did approach Chris Novoselic to play bass in the new band, but they both agreed it'd be too weird to do so. I think that was a wise choice,
especially if Pat's joining the band.
Yeah,
because then it's basically a Nirvana relaunch with like, hey, look, I'm Kurt Cobain now.
Yes.
And you know that might come off weird. So I can understand them wanting to start off fresh in a sense.
So you recruited Nate Mandel, who's still in the band to this day, Warren Goldsmith on drums, and Pat Smear would also join on guitar. Pat Smear was a touring guitarist for Nirvana. Pat Smear was probably the paid guitarist at the Last Supper. I mean, he is pushing his age, man, and he doesn't. But he doesn't look a day over 40.
Yeah, he stopped aging at about 35. Like he's probably one of those people that looked 35 when he was 16, and then he just never got any. You know, just stayed there. I knew somebody in high school like that. But yeah, let's see. Nate Mendel is from Sunny Day Real Estate, who was formerly of that band. There's another connection to them. I'm trying to remember what it is. But anyways, Pat Smear is like a punk rock legend, guitar player, played for the Germs and a couple other bands.
He's played for everyone.
Kurt was nervous about asking him to join the band because he thought his guitar playing was way better than his. So, but he was very happy to join, and he's a great fit for the Foo Fighters. I really liked him on the first album. His, like, in the videos, his personality shines through. He's really quirky, like fun kind of
guy. Well, for those who don't know, the personnel in this band was the Foo Fighters was Dave Grohl. Basically, he played everything and did production. Greg Dewey of I can't remember which band it is. It's written in my notes. I don't want to shuffle through my papers. He plays on track 10, which is which we'll get to. Hang on. Ecstatic. It was Dave Gully of the Afghan Wigs on guitar.
Afghan Wigs, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then you had Barrett Jones producing it, and you had a couple of other people engineering and mastering it. And nobody really I don't want to say nobody of any note, but nobody I could find information on. So, you know, sorry guys, not trying to ignore you or your contribution, because this is an important album in music history, regardless of whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, it launched one of the biggest bands of all time, even if it was a solo project, you know, for lack of a better term. And you know, I mean, even to this day, Foo Fighters will still sell out arenas and stadiums. I mean, they came here, what was it, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, completely and utterly sold out. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm wearing a thrifted shirt from the gig, so.
Yeah, it was. I actually had the chance to go, and it was really cool. I'm glad that I got to see Taylor before he passed. I actually have a drum solo of his that I recorded. It's on my YouTube channel. I'll toss you the link to it if you want to put it in the.
Yeah, I'll put it in the notes.
If anyone wants to check it out, it's actually really. I'm kind of far away, but the audio is actually not bad. So.
Okay, so we're gonna go track by track. All the tracks are written by Dave Grohl. All the opinions have been found online through fan theories and explanations from Dave Grohl himself. And we're gonna start off with a track called "This Is the Call." And it's kind of like an introduction to Dave Grohl's his new adventure. This is, hey, I'm Dave Grohl. I approve this album. This is what we've got. This is who I am now.
Yeah, just a nod and a hello, and here I am.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, he did kind of go away for a year or so, and even then, Nirvana weren't playing live, so it was about 18 months that he was gone for. And this is now, you know, hey, I'm back. This is what I do. You know, I've got a new album out, and this is my new career. And it's a really, really good song. Grohl described the song as a hello and thank you to everyone who's been part of his life. The chorus says, "This is a call to all my past resignation." It's sort of like a little wave to all the people I ever played music with, people I've been friends with, all my relationships, my family. It's a hello and in a way, thank you, said Dave Grohl, from the Foo Fighters archive. Date unknown, unfortunately. This song was written during one of Grohl's honeymoons in Ireland, and is one of the few songs on the album he didn't write during the Nirvana days. And that's a lot of the confusion as well. A lot of people think that he wrote all these songs after the Nirvana downfall, where it was a lot of them that were just written before that. Because you got to remember, while he was on tour, he'd take his guitar with him and record and write music during the offsets.
Yeah, downtime. There's a lot of downtime when you're on the road, so. It's a good spot to do that.
Yeah. So it's a good song. It's a really, really good opening track for any album that you can think of, really, because it's just it's a good start.
Yeah, it's I like in the very beginning, if you listen really carefully, there's more pointing to him introducing himself, because if you listen really carefully, the first thing you hear is him plugging in his guitar.
Yes.
And like kind of adjusting a little bit, which I thought was a nice touch. You don't normally hear nuances like that in a professional recording.
No.
So lends to his kind of punk rock roots, and also him kind of saying, "Well, here we go.
Time to get started.
Visiting is pretty." Yeah. So
it's a really, really good song. It's a good way to start the album. We'll go to the next track, and it's "I'll Stick Around," and we kind of touched on it earlier. But this is his, basically, screw you to Courtney Love.
Yeah.
They did not have the best of relationship after Kurt died.
No, Courtney had a vision for the Cobain estate, and unfortunately that didn't compensate the remaining members of Nirvana in a fair way.
No.
So, yeah, it led to some issues. So, yeah.
But this was a hit single for the album. I mean, a lot of people thought that it was about his commentary on his time with Nirvana and his relationship with Courtney Love, but he kind of had always said that it wasn't, and kind of dodged the question for years and years and years and years. And then in 2009, he came out and said, "I don't think it's a secret that I'll Stick Around is about Courtney. I've denied it for 15 years, and I'm finally coming out and saying it. Just read the words."
Expletive deleted words. Yes.
Yes, I'm trying to keep this PG because the Courtney Love episode was really, really difficult to go through.
Yeah.
And that was not a PG episode, but then again, it's not a PG album. This is more PG, except Dave Grohl does like the odd Irish word or two.
I'd like to point something out too about this one, and a couple other ones are similar. Dave was really particular about the way he structured his songs.
Yes.
Kind of in the same way that Kurt was. Kurt was tired of verse, chorus, verse, so he would start off like with the chorus and like have a pre-chorus and all these different things. So if you look at the way it's structured, it's actually intro, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 3, pre-chorus, chorus, outro. So instead of being verse, chorus, for intro, verse, chorus, chorus, outro, like you've got it mixed up a little bit. And the same thing with the next one, actually. So I always thought that was really interesting, the way it was structured. It was non-traditionally structured according to like standard rock.
Well, you've made it as an artist when Weird Al parodies you. And you kind of made it as an artist when he puts you in his polkas, his polka medleys. And this actually, Weird Al yelling, "I don't owe you anything," is real really weird to hear. But this was featured on Weird Al's The Alternative Polka, and that's a good one. If you're a fan of Weird Al, or if you're not a fan of Weird Al but you like some polka stuff, it's really good.
I spent a lot of time in the car with Dexter, so I've heard all Weird Al stuff.
Big fan, I take it. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's a huge fan. But the next track on the album is another big hit and another signature Foo Fighters song, "Big Me," which it's kind of a soft song when you think about it compared to the rest of the album.
Yeah, it's more like the way it's set up, it's more like a 50s rock song or something. It's
Yeah,
got a little ding, ding, ding. It's just kind of real, it's sitting in the pocket. Uh, you know, it's very it's got a different feel than the rest of the album for sure.
yeah. It is it is very very. I don't say dated, but it does sound very very old fashioned compared to the
Yeah,
rest of the album.
it's almost got a swing to it,
Yeah,
but it's set up really strangely too. There's a bunch of little there's a bunch of weird changes in it, so he was just really on point to be able to do this all by himself and know exactly when to do the changes.
yeah.
So,
I mean, I think the music video is what drove this song's popularity. Where
yes,
they were doing the parody of the Mentos commercials.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah, that's what sold it for sure.
for those in the UK, for example, and Japan who don't know what Mentos are, it's like a mint, and there'd be commercials over here where somebody would do something, and they would ask, "How did you do that?" And they'd hold up the packet of mints, saying, "Hey, here I am.
Ding! Mentos.
You can do anything." So they decided to go with Futos, the fresh maker, or the fresh
Yes.
fighter, excuse me. And Dave Grohl said again from Foo Fighters Web that we had some difficulty finding a treatment that would suit the song, which is a short, tongue-in-cheek, ridiculously candy-coated pop tune. We didn't want to make a big, pretentious portrait video. We wanted to have some fun with ourselves and the song. And they did have fun in that video. You could tell they were enjoying themselves,
Oh yeah.
especially when they stole that car, pulled over.
Hmm.
But the success of the video, strangely enough, though, the band stopped playing this song because of the Mentos crossover.
Yeah.
Um, basically put, the success led to fans throwing Mentos on the stage as the band performed the song.
Yeah, like rocks. They're little
Yeah,
rocks,
they're
man.
tiny rocks. Don't stone the band.
You're right.
They only
You know,
started playing it back after Weezer started playing it. So,
ooh, I love
and,
Weezer.
uh, Weezer are a band that came from the 90s.
They're very tight now. They did a Tiny Desk concert recently, and they're still really really tight. They sound good.
I think one of the things that broke me out in a cold sweat, because I'm not the biggest Weezer fan, I'll be honest.
Sure.
So that broke me out in a cold sweat was Weezer plays, oh, dang it, I've forgotten, the Metallica song, Enter Sandman.
Nice.
And they even, like, put the Buddy Holly riff in the guitar solo.
Oh, tight.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they have fun.
The next track is a track called Alone and Easy Target. And this was originally written in 1991. And this is the song you were talking about where Dave Grohl was hugged by Kurt Cobain after listening to it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was originally written and recorded in 91. And Dave Grohl played the demo to Kurt Cobain during the Nevermind tour. I told him I was recording, and he said, "Oh, I want to hear it. Bring it by." He was sitting in the bathtub with a Walkman on, listening to the song, and when the tape ended, he took the headphones off and kissed me and said, "Finally, I don't have to be the only songwriter in the band." I said, "No, no, no. I think we're doing just fine with your songs." And yeah, I can see that, because this album, I don't think. Okay, this album was showing what Dave Grohl as the songwriter was then, and I don't think any of these songs would have suited a fourth Nirvana album.
Yeah, probably not. Maybe a couple of them, but I don't know. They wouldn't have been the same once Kurt got a stink on it, because Kurt would have notes or suggestions or
Yeah,
something, so it wouldn't be the same even if it had made it. And I think it was smart for him to like just be like, nah, because Nirvana was doing really well. They were on a good trajectory.
yeah,
Most of In Utero had been written at that point. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but Kurt had a bunch of written material that got destroyed
yeah.
in an accident, so he had to basically rewrite parts of In Utero, and there was a whole nother album worth of stuff that had never got released because it was all on demo tapes and on paper,
Yeah,
and he lost all of it. So
yeah. For those aspiring musicians now, you don't store your prize guitar and your notes from your upcoming album in a bathtub, because someone will either turn it on or you will have sewage backup in it.
yep.
And I mean, I think he was more devastated at the loss of the guitar than the songs, though.
Probably, yeah. It was like this old Mossrite guitar that he really liked. It was one of the only ones that he hadn't smashed. So
The next track on the album is a song called "Good Grief," and it delves into feelings of confusion and despair. Now,
It's a great title because confusion and despair, good grief, a little bit of irony there.
Yeah,
Like, good grief, Charlie Brown, but also it's
yeah,
like the grief is good.
yeah.
Like the grief can help you grow. So yeah, it's a perfect title.
See, a lot of people didn't know this, and I didn't know this until I was researching this album, that they didn't have a falling out, so to speak, but Cobain and Grohl weren't on the best of terms during the In Utero tour.
No, Kurt's ailing health, his addiction, he overdosed in Rome. He was very self-isolating at that point, very just put off by fame in general.
Yeah,
So it made him very antisocial. So when they tried to get together to work, he'd either didn't want to do it, or he'd make some excuse and then go shoot up and go check into a hotel room for a week.
yeah.
So, you know.
I mean, there was rumors going around that they'd be on the same hotel room floor, and Cobain would be like so loud that everybody could hear him on that floor. And he was saying, screw Dave, screw Chris, they're both fired. I don't, and people would be telling Kurt,
Yeah.
hey, they can hear what you're saying, and Kurt's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll say it louder if you don't want to. Bring them here. I'll tell them to their face. He was
Yeah,
kind of
they
very,
almost
very defiant.
yeah, they almost broke up a couple of times, and a lot of it was just directly from Cobain's struggles with his very rapidly found fame because Nevermind took off so quickly,
Yeah,
it just created a lot of tension. And Dave he could sense the instability, and it made him insecure about his role and his future in
yeah,
the band because Kurt's condition was so volatile all the time. It was always changing. He was he would go from times where he was sublimely happy to angry and depressed in just like a moment's notice sometimes
yeah.
because of his relapses and his stomach issues and his addiction and all that. So it was a really complicated time for him.
Well, Dave Grohl went to Chris Novoselic a few times and said, "Look, if you want me to leave, I'll leave." And Novoselic was like, "Dude, don't worry about it. Just seriously, he's just this Kurt being Kurt. Just let him be. He'll
Yeah.
be fine." And in the Kurt Cobain diary book, there's a letter that he wrote to Novoselic, which broke a lot of people's hearts. Because Kurt was just, I want to say unhinged, but he wasn't himself. He wasn't the same Kurt Cobain that everybody knew him as around about the Nevermind time and the early parts of In Utero too.
Yeah, for sure. The fame got to him. It was a meteoric rise. In the biography, "Come As You Are," he basically explains that he just wanted to be able to pay his bills and not have to flip burgers or
Yeah,
work a construction job, that kind of thing. He wanted just to be able to pay his bills. He wasn't trying to be an icon or be the greatest of all time or a voice of a generation. That bothered him. You
yeah,
know?
yeah. And a lot of people can't handle the fame, and we're seeing that now with certain pop stars out there going off the deep end. The I can't remember her name. The chick who wrote Hot to Go is very, very volatile in her dealing with people.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, what they live in somebody else's dream. I
Yeah.
mean, there's people who'd love to be stuck in a hotel room getting yelled at by their fans. And I get some people can't handle the fame, and some people don't want the fame to begin with, but when you're as talented as some of these people are, you should expect it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean, Kurt Cobain was a talented songwriter. He might not have been the best guitarist, and he might not have been the best singer, but as a songwriter, fantastic.
Yeah, he was very creative as far as like the progressions he used, and like what I was saying earlier about Dave, like the way he arranged his stuff too. It was very unique, stood out. A good example of that is "In Bloom." If you listen to that one,
Yeah,
there's so many accidentals. It adds a lot of tension. It's like resolving and then dissonanting, or creating dissonance rather. So yeah, it just his songwriting was definitely his strongest thing. But I don't think anybody else could have sang for Nirvana.
no, nobody could have. Nobody could have.
You
Now,
know?
the funny thing about Kurt Cobain is a lot of people have twisted his legacy a little bit, and he is totally the guy who'd see a kid wearing a Nirvana shirt and say, "Hey, name 3 songs."
Yeah,
I mean, you only got to
absolutely.
listen to the lyrics of "In Bloom" to figure that one out,
Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
yeah, so. But that one was, like I said, good grief. just Grohl was witnessing the decline of one of his friends and got his guitar out and wrote about it.
Yep.
So if you're feeling down, write about it. That's that if you can't help somebody, get it out yourself.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
makes sense. So the next song is one of the more unique tracks on the album. It's called Floaty, and it's got a dreamy kind of lyrics with an upbeat tempo, and it shows Dave Grohl's ability to blend different musical elements. Grohl said in an interview that he'd always been critical of his vocals leading up to the album, describing himself as nasally. So he said in this interview, I've just had an amazing insecurity about my voice. There are no effects on the voice. Well, on the song Floaty there are, but everything else is double tracked. And I remember you saying that I have a very annoying nasally voice. It's true. It's absolutely true. I think Michael Stipe once said that his sinuses were a God-given gift, and that's why his voice is so nasally and bizarre as it is. To me, it's more of a curse. I'd rather have them repaired so I can sing like Luciano Pavarotti.
Michael Stipe from REM, for anyone who's wondering who that is.
Yes. Stipe is a living legend.
Yeah, he's a grunge / alternative god.
Yes.
For sure.
Michael Stipe, for British people who don't understand this, right? Michael Stipe to the grunge people is what Paul Weller was to the Britpop people. Basically the godfather of that whole movement.
He's the godfather of indie rock, essentially.
Yes. I mean
he's the guy that made that kind of like a college special.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the crowd for that. He's the guy that ushered that in.
I mean, and REM are far, the early REM stuff on the IRS label, is just some of the best alternative music that you'll find. Some of it is a little high out there, but the rest of it, man, is really, really good.
Yeah, REM's solid. I really like the album. I'm trying to remember the name of the Star 69 and What's the Frequency, Kenneth. That was a banger of an album right there.
Monster,
yeah.
Yes.
That was a great album.
It's absolutely. We're gonna talk about Monster actually next season, so it's on my list of things to talk about next year. So that's all good. But yeah, Floaty is a real weird song. I mean, we went on the REM tangent, but it is very, very REM-esque.
Yeah, that's got another different feel from the rest of the album. Just kind of like Big Me. It's the mood is, dreamy. Dreamy is a good phrase to describe it, or a good word to describe it, because just the way that it is kind of floaty, just like it says. It's interesting.
Next track, I don't have too much notes on it, but it's a song called Weenie Beanie.
Yeah.
And it's known for its raw sound and its aggressive vocals. And it's a nod to basically the punk rock movement that inspired Dave Grohl. He said, I've taken the heat for a lot of lyrics I wrote 4 years ago, and it frightens me to think that the line "one shot nothing" in Weenie Beanie could be taken wrong. I mean, I wrote that song in 1991. So a lot of people are trying to... A lot of these songs, a lot of people are trying to connect to Nirvana, and a lot of them are connecting them in the wrong way.
Sure. They're
trying to connect it to Kurt Cobain's death when it was actually during Kurt Cobain's prime, for lack of a better term.
Right. Well, they're going through struggles too in their own way. I mean, even just because your band is doing well and you're making a lot of money doesn't mean that you're not personally struggling in some way.
Definitely.
So.
Well, let's go to the next track called "Oh George," and this is apparently his tribute to George Harrison. Excuse me. The track highlights Grohl's admiration for the Beatles, and the melodic guitar work pays homage to Harrison's style. Okay, let me ask you this question. Could you consider Dave Grohl to be a modern-day George Harrison, or at least the 90s version of George Harrison?
I think it's a fair comparison. I mean, he obviously didn't have the breadth that the Beatles had material-wise, but I think you could make an argument alone just on his influence. I mean,
there are 4 points that I wrote down, right? And this is why I think that he is the 90s version of George Harrison. Okay?
Right.
He's an important part of one of the most influential bands in history. Well, he was the drummer for Nirvana. Check.
Absolutely.
He was overshadowed by a generational songwriter.
That puts Kurt Cobain in the John Lennon position, essentially, in that
Yeah,
analogy.
Lennon McCartney, right?
I agree that Kurt Cobain basically was the John Lennon of the 90s,
Yeah.
for the
Uh,
sake of argument, yeah.
he showed his own talent when the influential band ended,
Hmm.
and he could be considered to have the best post career of the people in that band.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the numbers,
Yeah,
and that's solely based on longevity, because keep in mind, Nirvana was only a band for like 5 years.
yeah,
The Foo Fighters have put out like more than half
multiple.
a dozen albums. They've toured the world numerous times. So I mean, he's got a bigger sample size for that. But yeah, I would argue, even though it's kind of not exactly congruent, I think you could definitely make that case. It's
Yeah,
definitely a something I didn't consider before.
I mean, it's hard being in that kind of shadow, and the difference, I guess, being was that George Harrison wanted out of that shadow, whereas Dave Grohl Dave Grohl would have been happy to be Nirvana's drummer for the last 20 years if Kurt was still with us. Last
Yeah,
30 years.
even though he was unsure about his place, ultimately, like, he loves playing drums. He loved being in Nirvana. I mean, it was something that he loved. It's just the how volatile Kurt's situation was and how he was as a person that made it kind of stressful.
Yeah. So it's a good little theory, but I mean I think it's one that sticks out. His admiration for Harrison, he became Harrison.
Yeah.
So, the next track on the album is called "For All the Cows," which is a quirky, introspective song. That's one way to describe it, I guess. It stands out for its distinct shifts in dynamics and tempo. Yeah.
I love this. I love that quote describing it. That's the perfect explanation of that song. It's perfect.
Yeah, quiet, jazzy verses with explosive Paul Bunyan goes jogging choruses.
It's great. It's because it's true. Because literally in the verse, for all the it's like, whoa! It just elevates so quickly. It's really cool.
And this was performed at the legendary Reading Festival, and
Yeah.
this is what basically got them in the UK and Ireland. Because see, when Nirvana did Reading, they headlined, right? When the Foo Fighters did Reading, they were middle of the card on like one of the early days.
Tuesday or something.
Yeah. And I found out that the bigger the band... Okay. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Oasis can never play Glastonbury again. They should never play Glastonbury. They should never play any of the big festivals ever again, because every time they've headlined one of these festivals, they've blown it.
Yeah.
They can play to a stadium. They can play to 250,000 people over 2 nights in a field. But when it came to standard festivals in the UK, they somehow never quite got it right.
Festivals are, I can tell you this as someone that's performed in my fair share of festivals, it's hard work.
Yeah.
You're sharing the stage with multiple bands. There's a lot of equipment that needs to be moved. Sometimes you have to like come in and set up early in a different part of the stage, depending on the way that the stage manager's got everything blocked out. Then you got to meet the needs of all the sound and the backup people. So it's a lot of work. So I know they've got internal issues too, so that probably doesn't help them either.
But when they played Glastonbury the first time, it was midday, middle of the day on the second day, and they nailed it. So while certain bands can nail festival headline spots, some of them can nail the daytime slots a lot better. And I think we saw that with the Foo Fighters here with the Reading Festival.
Yeah, that's a big one to play too. There's actually a live album of Nirvana at Reading.
Yes.
And there's another one called The Muddy Banks of Wishka. So if you're looking for live stuff with Dave Grohl, that's a good spot to start right there.
I've got the Muddy Banks of Wishka on MP3. I don't have Reading, unfortunately.
Okay, that one's got Pat Smear on it, so I'm a big fan of that one because it's just very full sounding with both guitars. But yeah, they're both pretty good.
Nice. Next track on the album is Ecstatic. It features Greg Dully of the Afghan Wigs on guitar and is the only guest musician on the album, for lack of a better term.
I did not even know that. That's pretty interesting. I assumed that he had laid it all down, but Dave's not necessarily a solo guy.
No.
So that makes sense to kind of bring a friend in to help him out a little bit.
And what Greg Dully said in an interview, he said he'd do a whole 40 minutes and I was completely fascinated by it. He could do it because he had perfect tom. He'd lay down a perfect drum beat and work off that. He'd play drums, run out, play bass, then put 2 guitar layers over the top of it, sing it. I was just watching him record and he asked me if I wanted to play. I didn't even get out of my chair. He just handed me a guitar.
Yes.
Hey, you want to play on this?
That's so impressive for him to just be that perfect, just to go in and just knock it out. And bear in mind, we're not listening to like a Yngwie Malmsteen or a Dream Theater album, so there's nothing super crazy going on. But at the same time, you'd be surprised how easy it is to screw up something when you have 20 microphones on you and there's a click track beeping in your ear.
Right.
It adds some pressure to you. So yeah, the super just still impressed with that to this very day.
This is probably the heaviest song on the album.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. It was one of the few on the album written after Kurt Cobain's death in the months leading up to the album's recording session. The track, to be honest, has been virtually ignored by the band, having not seen a live performance since 1995. So a song like Aesthetic is the only way I can express grief or happiness, said Dave Grohl in an unknown interview. Yeah, it's a really good song, but like they said, the band just, after this song was, I guess, given up to the altar of the second album, if that makes sense.
I mean, they've got a lot of great tunes too. I mean, after the second album came out, they had 6 bona fide singles.
Yeah.
So they didn't really have to depend on it too terribly much. But yeah, it's a great track, and it's a shame they're not playing it live.
Okay, I can't pronounce this next one, but it's Watershed?
Yeah, Watershed.
Watershed, okay. It's fast-paced with a punk-like vibe and showcases Grohl's love of punk. And the lyrics basically has a stream of consciousness by Dave Grohl. So that's really all I've got on that one. I've got no notes. I've got nothing from Dave Grohl explaining it. It's just other than it was a stream of consciousness, And
yeah,
I've seen people do stream of consciousness. I've done stream of consciousness stuff on some of the stuff I recorded back in the day when I was delusional enough to think I could sing.
that reminds me of a line from one of my favorite albums. It's your stream of consciousness is a sea. You look like Brukowski in a rage. So it's funny to hear a stream of consciousness like that. Yeah, I'm looking at the lyrics now. They're pretty esoteric, definitely.
That's the sign of somebody who basically didn't have any lyrics going into the studio and just made it up on the spot.
Kurt Cobain writing lyrics on the dashboard while he's smoking a cigarette and listening to the radio and drinking a cup of coffee. Yeah. That old thing.
Dave, did you bring your homework in? I did it on the bus,
The dog ate my lyrics.
All right. Well, we mentioned Michael Stipe earlier. Michael Stipe did country feedback like that. He just basically walked in the studio, sat in the chair, sang a stream of consciousness, and walked out and left the rest of the REM going, what did we just witness?
Right.
Because Country Feedback's a phenomenal song, but just the way it was recorded left the other guys in REM a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, right.
The final track in the album is called Exhausted, which I bet he was after 5 days of doing this.
Yeah.
A grungy feedback-laden track reflects on the weariness and the emotional drainage, that Grohl felt after the whirlwind years with Nirvana and the beginning of his journey with the Foo Fighters. The track was originally written during Dave's time with Nirvana and was recorded by Dave and Nirvana bassist Chris Novoselic in a 1994 session, which ultimately served as Nirvana's last studio session together. So this might have been a Nirvana track.
Yeah, I could see that. It's got the vibe. It's in a minor key. Yeah. Some of these are in major keys. Kurt wasn't really a fan of writing in major keys very often. There's only a couple of songs I can think of that were. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
The closing song is a distinction of being the first single ever released by the band. While many fans cite it as their favorite tracks, if not number one, is from the first record, it didn't see much love in the 21st century, and it hasn't been performed since 2014.
Yeah, once again, though, they've got a litany of material. They've got probably a dozen hits
at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would make sense to lean on, Everlong and My Hero and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, this album for me is an 8 out of 10. What do you think of it?
Similar. I give it a 9 out of 10 just because it's probably in my top 10 or 15 all-time go-to comfort albums. It's like meeting up an old friend for coffee or something. It's just very comforting, just a well-done album. Well,
yeah, I mean, it is a good album. I mean, a lot of the songs were written during Nirvana and at the end of Nirvana, and that kind of hangs over every track on the album. because you think, well, he must have written this about Kurt. He must have written this about the grief of the situation, and that's not entirely true with a lot of these tracks.
Sure.
You definitely go on a journey as he tries to make heads or tails of the last few years of his life.
Yeah.
And it does feel like a lot of catharsis all over the album.
Just some pillow punching, yeah, just some little bit of musical therapy.
Definitely. And I mean,
Nice. It must be nice to get paid to work out your problems, huh? Jeez, where do I sign up?
Right. Give me 6 days in the studio. Let me show you what I can do. Not much is that 6 days.
I'm no Dave Grohl, but I'll give you something.
Just give me a drummer. I can do the rest. Well, and a singer. And a competent bass player. And maybe a keyboardist.
There you go. You almost say.
I've written everything. I just need somebody to sing it for me. No, but this gave Dave Grohl a second bite at the apple.
Yeah.
A second shot at a career, and the Foo
And
Fighters
would do it his own way. No,
yes.
Sorry.
No, you're right though. You're absolutely right. He did get to do it his own way. He wasn't, he didn't drum for like 6 or 7 different bands and put out an album here or there. He literally went into the studio, introduced himself, plugged his guitar in, and boom, this is what we got.
Absolutely.
The Foo Fighters would surpass Nirvana in terms of record sales and become one of the biggest bands of all time.
Yeah.
As of recording 11 albums they've released.
I would argue that Dave Grohl should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice.
3 times.
At least twice. But maybe 3. At least twice, just for Nirvana and Foo Fighters alone. I mean, he's already in for Nirvana, but Foo Fighters should be in too.
Foo Fighters definitely should be in. Although they probably won't after the latest controversy, which we're going to get to here in a minute.
We'll give him a few years, maybe.
Yeah, let all this die down.
Yeah.
Tragedy would strike the band in 2022 as Taylor Hawkins was found dead in a hotel room from an apparent heart attack in Colombia.
Yeah, when I hear heart attack in Colombia, I immediately think of the fine China.
Yes.
Immediately. So I hate that for his family and for his very talented son, who I'm surprised didn't take over for his position. But they got Josh Freese from A Perfect Circle, and he is excellent drummer, one of the best out there.
I mean, that probably would have been tough because there's a lot of comparisons made between Taylor Hawkins and Kurt Cobain visually because they look pretty close to each other.
Yeah, sure. It's very similar build, similar similar style, I would argue. But they had similar upbringings, and Taylor was the product of a very blue collar working class family.
Yeah.
So they didn't have tons of money for stuff, designer clothing or anything like that. So he grew up really simply like Kurt did. So yeah, they have to do that. They are very akin in that.
But the band would continue. Dave Grohl would continue. He also did drum for other people. He is a guest drummer on a lot of things like Tenacious D, Queens of the Stone Age. Whenever there's a big festival, he's usually part of the house band.
Yeah, he did something with I think they were called Probot. I may be flubbing that one, but yeah, he's done several notable things as a drummer. It's kind of perfect for him because he was quoted as saying when he did the Queens of Stone Age album that he just missed playing drums.
Yeah,
because like he only played drums for the first album and the second album for the Foo Fighters, and after that Taylor took over. So he just kind of gets to dip his toe back into drumming whenever he wants to, which is a pretty cool spot to be in.
No, it is a good spot to be in. I mean, he's an icon of the American alternative music scene, and probably behind Michael Stipe, he's probably considered one of the top people in history. Because his longevity and his
total body of work, his influence, his just his prowess at all these instruments and vocal ability, his frontman ability. Yeah, it's unheralded. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's just like over the top. His abilities are just out there.
It's just a shame that he can't keep himself to himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we record this, Dave is going through something of a scandal that has rocked his good guy image.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like getting into the nitty gritty, but I mean, he has said a lot of things about other people in these positions in the past, especially Courtney Love.
Yeah.
And, for him to have a 15-year long affair from his. But then again, we should have known. Avalon was written about chick from Veruca Salt, and then he went off with Winona Ryder.
Louise Post, I think
Yes.
who it was. Yeah.
I couldn't
Because he
remember the
dated
name.
her, and Kurt was dating Toby Vale from Bikini Kill. And yeah, so it's a little rock and roll partnership over there. They should have collaborated. That'd have been cool.
It's just, things are coming out now as well, especially with the Puff Daddy scandal, the P Diddy scandal coming out as well.
Gosh.
And Grohl is linked to the early days of that because of some of the drumming that Grohl did back in the day, and he was invited to a lot of parties, and
Ooh.
so his reputation is a little bit in the shredder right now.
Yeah, and he tried to get in front of the affair scandal, and I give him props where it's due for that, for
Owning up to it.
Yeah, I give him props for that, but the other stuff, I guess we'll just have to see what comes to light fully on that. But that's not surprising in Hollywood, but it's also the level that it was at is very surprising at the same time.
Somebody said this, and about Dave Grohl, is we pinned all of our Kurt Cobain hopes onto Dave Grohl, and to see this is disappointing. It's like he's let all of us down because he was the nicest guy in rock, and he's still, look. Here's the thing, right? He might be a sleazy womanizer, but as far as like the musician and the artistry goes, he's still the one letting kids come up on stage and play Foo Fighters songs in the middle of Foo Fighters gigs. He's still the one, organizing charity events and
cooking for the homeless, and giving away guitars and raffling off stage-worn stuff for charities. And I think he's trying his best to try to maybe make up for some of that.
Do you think he'll survive the scandal?
I think so. I think it'll well, at least the first one, I think he'll be fine, because I don't want to say he gets a pass because he's a rock star, but that I would argue that for someone at that level, it should be kind of understood that might come with the territory.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a total shock. I'm in no means justifying it or making light of it, but that is it. It's literally, they call it sex, drugs, and rock and roll because it's those three things.
It's those three things.
So it's surprising coming from Dave, but as for someone that has that kind of position, it's not surprising.
No, it's not. And with the other stuff, it's just rumor and innuendo right now, but let's hope that's all it is.
Yeah, he could just break it off, I guess. He's in a position financially where he doesn't have to rely on her. So he could have just ended it. So I guess there's that too. Whatever.
Yeah. So, but that's it for the Foo Fighters. So great album, great debut, great welcome back to music for one of the most talented people in music at the time.
Absolutely.
So that's it for the Foo Fighters. Greg, it was awesome to have you on, man. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. Happy to be here always.
You'll be back in a couple of weeks when we go back to the kid pool.
The kid pool?
Yes, well, we're going to be talking about some children's game shows.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, so like Double Dare. And
I've got
other ones.
I've got a list of a bunch of American and a couple of UK ones as well. So I can tell you some of the stuff that I grew up with. I think I got 12 overall. We're just gonna go through them and give some stories. So that'll be a good one to do. Because I know last time we went to Doug, we went to Dave. Now we're going to see what the kids are up to.
Yeah, that was the golden era of children's game show programming for sure.
Golden era of children's TV altogether, I think.
It might have been. Yeah, so, I was only a kid during that time, so I can't really speak for others. But yeah, I have to agree with you on that. It was pretty special for me.
I'll give you some homework for that one off air. So
sweet.
But Greg will be back here in a couple of weeks. I'll be back here in a couple of minutes to explain what's going on and introduce our next week episode and so on and so forth. And I'll be back here in a minute. Take it easy.
Peace.
Sincere thank you to Greg for coming on this week. I know he's a busy man, and I appreciate the time he takes to come on here and talk to us about some of the great things that happened in the great decade. He'll be back in 2 weeks' time as we talk about some children's game shows. I'm looking forward to this episode because children's game shows were a big part of my childhood, and some of the things that we worked on, or some of the things that we watched, and we saw was fantastic. We didn't get some of the shows in the UK that you guys got and vice versa, so it's going to be interesting talking about them moving forward. Okay, so that'll be in 2 weeks' time. Next week is our spooky Halloween special. Ooh. Where I'm joined by Sarah as we talk about a movie so bad that it's absolutely awesome. We're talking Army of Darkness or Evil Dead 3, depending on which way you look at it. I remember watching this the first time when I was in college, and I thought it was hysterical. And maybe it was a little more hysterical than I thought it was, if that makes sense. It was supposed to be this serious, well, not serious, but like, you know, it's supposed to be scary, and it showed just how bad CGI and stop motion were at the time. But yeah, it's a great movie, and we'll be talking about that next week in our spooky, scary Halloween special. Stick around for that. Now, update on the 90s Gamer. I'm still recording the 90s Gamer. I'm still practicing before I record, I should say. And I'm still hoping for a December 3rd launch, but I am really, really struggling with the controls of the game. So I'm going to go on YouTube and see some tutorials and try and figure out how to play the game the best. I do have a backup plan up my sleeve, as I mentioned, if Fallout doesn't work out. And it won't be a 90s game, but it will be a remake of a 90s game, and a game that I've been trying to finish. We've tried playing it 3 times here on the 90s Gamer and in our Dead Streamer, and it just hasn't worked out. But I'm going to finish, dang it, in a 4-part special. But that will be the next 90s Gamer after Fallout, or if Fallout doesn't work, it'll be the replacement series on December 3rd. I don't know yet. I will have more information next week as I practice and play more Fallout. I will let you know. Because it's not only a turn-based game, but it's it's mouse controlled game, and you do everything with the mouse, and I'm trying to figure out which buttons do what and how to talk to people and how to change weapons and so on and so forth. It is really, really difficult for a first time player, so stay tuned for that. I'll have news next week, and hopefully, you know, it'll be good. This year's special Thanksgiving stream on our Dead Streamer will be on November 30th on a Saturday, as we sit down and play a game that we spoke about a couple of weeks back. I'm going to be playing Doom, yes. I'm going to be playing the first Doom, and then over the next couple of weeks playing several other Doom projects. Hopefully going into the new year, hopefully I'll have Tom to play a second game in there as well, because I want to do some more Lemmings with you guys. And as soon as that's done, we're going to ring in the new year on January 1st. We're going to do an all-day stream, or I say all-day stream, we're going to do a couple of hours stream at least, on Wednesday, January 1st, as we play Championship Manager End of Season Edition. Now, I don't know if this is going to be an exciting game to watch, but can I take Arsenal to the title in Season 1? That's my goal. The season was 1994-95, the year the Blackburn Rovers won the title. So Blackburn Rovers, team now in the Championship in England as a Premier League trophy. They beat Manchester United to it after Eric Cantona's suspension. Arsenal finished a high 12th position after previously finishing 4th the season before, and was champions a few seasons before that. So, can I take this ramshackle squad to the title? Of course I can. I'm awesome at that game. I'll show you how to do it, okay? But that is really all we've got for the Because of Me Network over the next couple of weeks. So, let's look back real quick and let me tell you what it is. Sarah's back next week in a Halloween special. Greg back in 2 weeks' time. We're hoping for a December 3rd launch of the 90s Gamer, a Fallout. If not, we're going to play new and tasty. And we're going to be starting Doom on our Dead Streamer after Thanksgiving, starting with our Thanksgiving stream on November 30th. And that is it. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. And go check out becausemaybepodcast.com. That's where you find our archive of everything that we've ever done ever. Go check out our YouTube channel. That's where you'll find video game stuff as well as some other stuff. Like, we've got video diaries and so on and so forth on there. I think we've got one video diary. And so you also find the Right Here, Right Now podcast. Also, check out Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podchaser, Pandora, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, or Amazon Music. That's where you'll find the 90s podcast and the Extra podcast. As well as check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, as well as Twitter. That presence is going to be going away over the next couple of months as I try and figure out how to use Threads. It's just the outspoken ownership, man. I can't deal with the idiocy that comes on that website these days. So that probably is going away. So that's a sad day. But aside from that, that's everything I wanted to talk about. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. We will see you next Sunday, or we will see you next Saturday if you listen to us on YouTube. And I want you all to say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and take it easy, everybody. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, Foo Fighters!